Oh, hey, welcome to Breaking Barriers, your front row seat to shifts in digital, in marketing, and entrepreneurship. I'm Steve, co-CEO of Wildstyle Network and the host of this season of Breaking Barriers. In this episode, I'm speaking with TikTok and media entrepreneur Jacob Pace, best known for his short-format media company Flighthouse, which was one of the first larger acquisitions of a TikTok media company in 2016, just when Jacob turned 18. Now he's pioneering new ideas, new work with content creators, and he's on the verge of launching what might be the next content powerhouse. But don't think that this conversation is only for the up-and-coming YouTube stars. If you are a CMO, a social media manager, or part of a brand team, Jacob's insights on data-driven strategies, building communities, leveraging niche content will help where competition is very tough right now. We will dig into why some influencers ignite while others burn out, a very thing at the moment, and how brands can ride the next wave of content innovation rather than getting left behind. Oh, and one more thing. We recorded this episode here on a pirate houseboat in Lisbon that we built, where we almost forgot to hit the record button. So you will hear how this interview turned into a candid, free-flowing conversation. So I think let's dive in.
Flighthouse is the company that you founded. Mm-hmm. You found it very early. It's quite nice because you make the mistakes early and then you can carry away the results early as well. How do you envision Flighthouse in terms of brand architecture? There's Flighthouse. Is Flighthouse the master brand and Pace the
good question.
Brand?
Good question.
Should it be Flighthouse Pace or Flighthouse Newsletter?
Yeah.
So
Flighthouse, I don't run anymore. I actually exited that company a few years ago. Interesting story there though. So I started working at Create Music Group when I was 16. And then it was there that I created Flighthouse underneath Create, and then scaled that to 30 million followers, about 10 million in revenue by the time that I left. And then Create actually ended up becoming $1 billion company recently. So this was in the past 6 months or so. So it was cool to kind of get in on a company like that, be one of their first 10 employees, build Flighthouse. I was more of definitely more of an entrepreneur in that aspect of things, of how I started that company. But I guess to answer your question, obviously I've exited that company, but I do envision Pace as being the parent company, if you will, to I don't even think we've talked about this yet, but Collab, which is a product that I'm putting a lot of energy into right now. And it's actually been really cool because as I work on campaigns right now, Collab has become my primary discovery tool for how I'm discovering creators. Because that was why I created Collab, was to just create a better way to discover creators. Because even when I discovered Flighthouse, it's how did I discover Flighthouse? I was just on Musical.ly one day and I happened to be scrolling, happened to be the right time. But it's if I wasn't on, Musical.ly that day, maybe I would have never come across Flighthouse, And so I just wanted there to be a more predictable, data-driven way to find creators, because it's not sustainable to just, rely on your For You page to try and serve you the people you need to be talking to. There should be a more methodical way.
How do you find these creators then? Do you create pull effects so that they come to you?
So right now we're collecting data from TikTok and Twitch. So we're collecting the honest answer is we're collecting about 2.5 million creators on TikTok, and we have the capabilities of collecting way, way, way beyond that, which I think we're going to execute in the next week or so. The only reason it's been on pause is because it's one of those, we were kind of talking about this a little bit at the beginning of the conversation, but it's one of those things where in my opinion, at least, and you would be very curious to hear your opinion, is you don't want to put so much development and resources into a product that no one's buying. So it's once people start to buy it, you're okay, we can put a little bit of more resources into that, right? So that's kind of why we've been just kind of growing it little by little. But actually something that we just rolled out on the product in the past week was Twitch data. So now we're collecting about 200,000 creators on Twitch, which I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious if there's I want to know what the stat is of how many people are streaming on Twitch daily, content creators. And I'm not saying
you cannot imagine, or you can.
I don't
imagine,
think it's a huge number.
But given the fact how how the view time is on Twitch, it should be.
Okay, here's what I'm saying.
What's your bet?
I would say like 1 million max.
Okay, yeah. I was leaning below. Streaming, yeah.
Not watching.
Not watching,
Way different,
streaming, yeah. Creating.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is a lot already.
Yeah.
1 million creators.
Well, and we're collecting 200,000. So we could, so if that's the case, we're collecting a fifth, right, of everyone, which I believe there's a chance it's even lower than 1 million. I'd say 1 million max. But I say that to say, like, when you compare it to the amount of people that are putting out content on TikTok per day, TikTok's drastically higher. Why is that? Because it's a lot easier to make content on TikTok. But it's for the same reason why there's less content coming out on YouTube every day versus TikTok. It's just like harder to put out content. But it's one of those things, right? It's like the more friction there is around creating content, usually the more engaged of an audience you're creating. I think there's just a psychology around that.
Jacob, what is the vision behind, or the mission behind collecting 2.5 mil on TikTok, 200K on Twitch? What's the vision behind? So once you collected them,
I think as it stands right now, it's really to just have like insight into like what's trending, who's trending, and make decisions from there. You know, because I don't know. I couldn't help but feel like if there's going to be anything of value happening in this space, we're going to need to have insight into what's going on.
Yeah, but the insight is just a starting point for something else. Yeah.
Yes.
And we are among us, so you can talk freely.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just saying. I want to put. That's the starting point. Like before we even talk about anything else, we need to know what's even going on, because I think people get very excited about creators, and it's like, well, why are you excited? Oh, because I know this person. I know that person. Okay, yeah, that's nepotism, right? Like I want to create this tool so that we can, and eventually, by the way, I do plan to license this tool. So like that's a part of the plan for sure.
What I meant.
Yeah. Right now it's like just for me because it's not like it's I almost kind of like it like this, but it's like I understand how to use it. And it gets done what I need to get done. And eventually, probably in the next like 6 to 9 months, I can see a world where I start to make this more available to people. And then, I don't know, maybe it is more B2B. Maybe it's B2 small business, you know, SMB, B to creator, right? I don't know. Maybe all of them. But I do think it's interesting to think like, where's the sustainability or the opportunity in creators wanting to collaborate with creators, brands wanting to collaborate with creators, SMBs wanting to collaborate with creators. And so the data is a step to understand how we interpret that, because otherwise it's like, if I'm understanding it correctly, and the reason I say that is because that's why even after my talk with you, I was like, admittedly, there's parts of it I've been cynical about. I think at this point, because of that keynote I did, there was parts of me that were forced to understand it in the way that of what it could actually be. And I think it's like, if I'm understanding this correctly, if we're talking about the same creator economy, these are all creators. Everyone has some kind of a channel that they're posting on, and that channel can be tracked, and that channel can be broken down into categories now with AI. And like it is kind of like a search engine in a way for creators, you know what I mean? And then there's an added element to it, which is the collaboration element, and I'm still kind of figuring that piece out. But that's kind of the steps, if that makes sense.
But look, given your experience in the creator economy, being an advocate for the community, it could also help other creators to get better at what they're doing, because you have a very great understanding of how content should work. I mean, for me, everything you did in the very early days of Lighthouse was like really leveraging the 7 to 15 seconds to the fullest, and understanding that game, understanding how you could connect and bridge the Gen Z with brands, etc. You could also help the creator economy and the creators by tapping into their channels, understanding what they're doing, understanding their category, and telling a creator, look, your category is trending down or trending up. You should do more of this or less of that. So this could also be something that could be very interesting.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting. I mean, I will say, like, even as I've done these videos for the Pace Report, we are like very inspired and just point blank stealing other people's like formats. Because yeah, it's like there's nothing new under the sun. Like everyone's copying some form of each other. And so it's like the quicker I can know what's working, the quicker I'm going to implement that into what I do. And where the unique element comes in is in how you deliver it. And it comes in what you're interested in, right? I think that's something that no one can really take away from you, right? But the format, it's like the format should be stolen if it's working, right? And so, yeah, I have thought about that as well. However, I think that is super interesting, and I think something we'll definitely do in the future. It's just a matter of like how we're able to take X amount of trending channels, understand what's working, and then kind of distill it into like a form that humans can understand. That's not just like a bunch of words jumbled together and like tags that people can understand. But look, I'll put it to you like this. I mean, I do, to your point, believe in the idea of like trends in various different categories. And I think that was a big reason why I wanted to build the tool, was because I feel like we're all living in these like silos today on our phones. And like, I can't even go through, there's two versions of me that exist when it comes to scrolling on short form. It's like the version of me that like is just genuinely entertained by what I'm watching. And I'm like, this is pretty fun. And then there's the version of me that's like, okay, I got to work now. I got to find creators. And I can only go through a few until I'm like, I'm either seeing the same kinds of creators, like I'm in like a certain type of TikTok, what, like soccer or, boxing, whatever the category might be, I might be trapped in that. And I'm just not getting the variety that I'm looking for. And just, I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, especially as I turn it into more of a consumer facing thing, which is like, even last night, I was just going through my database, just like looking for creators, and I can approach it with more of a logical, data-driven lens. I'm not getting trapped into spending time on the algorithm because I'm working, right? So then I'm looking at the highest engaged profiles on my database, right, which have like 3,000% engagement at the highest, and I'm just going through them like, okay, this can work for this can work for this, And it is interesting. Like, I think where I do think I'm onto something is when I come across pages in my database that I've seen on my For You page. And I'm like, okay, at least I know that there's some overlap between the data I'm finding and culturally what's relevant.
So you create manually a data layer for yourself and connect these layers and say, this works with that content creator could work in that topic or for that request that you have.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening on a much smaller basis, of course, and I don't know how much I buy into this like $500, billion figure, right? I don't even
the market size of
the market size economy projected to be by 2027.
Yes.
I do think that we're still we're way earlier than we even realize when it comes to the creator economy. I think it's about to get like way bigger. I'll say that. I don't know if it's worth 500 billion. It might be worth more. It might be worth less. By 2027, I have no idea, because I don't know what's that based off of. Even they said it was worth 250 billion last year, a couple of years ago. It's like, well, where's that? What companies, what organizations, because I see
it's still a segmented market, and the value and how these Gartners of this world estimate the size of the market is just by looking at the money that flows into the market. And you mentioned it in your speech, the 4% who earn from that, or who can make a living from that. So, however, I think you are right. When you have an industry, a category that grows more than 20% every year, then it will be higher than we can estimate right now. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm. I think even with the development of the platforms, and we haven't even yet talked about VR, AR, other channels, new platforms, new hybrids.
Well, the interesting thing about the creator economy, and that's where I'm personally excited, because I feel like it's just like selfishly speaking, an opportunity for me to create a business, right? Is when you look at like YouTube is like a really interesting concept and platform, because creators do make like pretty sustainable incomes off YouTube. They have kind of gotten the formula down to a point where, there is kind of this like CPM that is like relatively consistent, and I get it. But then it's like, well, if you think about the brands that are paying for that CPM, these are brands that are technically paying for traditional ads, which is declining, right? In terms of like, personally what I believe, and then also when you look at like the trend of just kind of what people are saying, which is like, you know, the younger generation is less interested in ads, more interested in, you
original
know,
content.
Original content. Yeah. So I just think that's going to be an interesting shift to watch, which is like, how is it that a creator is making so much money from these ads, which are losing interest by the population? And then what's going to be the new ad product that's created? And so that's kind of a space that I'm watching.
And this will be interesting to watch. Whereas I think for top of funnel, you will always have these kinds of out of home ads, classic advertising things, because you need to get your word out. You need to create awareness first, always, before you work on the consideration, on the acquisition, etc. And so therefore, I think we will always see ads, unfortunately, or fortunately for the industry. But you are right. I think then down the funnel, it will probably shift. And this is exactly what you're tapping into the shifts. And you're monitoring this quite carefully, saying, where is a shift happening right now? What should we lean more into to connect with Gen Z, connect with a brand? I mean, you do this for a purpose, right? The business model of Pace then is subscription, is then in the end of the day also getting clients to work with?
Yeah, so right now with Pace, I mean, it kind of operates like, obviously I describe it as like a product studio, Collab being sort of like the primary product that we're, you know, developing. But in terms of like, it used to be kind of an agency, but I simply called it an agency because I didn't have a better word for it at the time. And then
I'm suffering with the same thing.
Yeah. And then as I started to do more stuff, I was like, you know what? I don't need to call this an agency anymore, and I'm not going to call it an agency. But the interesting thing is, like, when it comes to how we're monetizing right now, like, brands and organizations will purchase my services and my partner services and combined as an agency. And in effect, we can do what an agency does, but we're still fueling, you know, our core products. Like, everything I do still touches Collab in some way. So it's kind of like I'm getting clients to pay for my R&D, if that makes sense, for what I'm doing. And then long term, it'll, you know, again, to your business, I've only, you know, a lot changes, whatever, but like, my long-term goal as I build this is to create some kind of sustainable product. I don't know if it's subscription. I don't know if it's like more of like a Salesforce type of thing. I mean, Salesforce is subscription, but, you know, definitely software. I mean, I'm mostly interested in software for sure. So I think I do want to lean more. I mean, I have software today, right? It's just, it's not, you know, it is effective. I mean, I can send it to you today and you can use it. Like,
What is it then?
The software? Collab.
Collab. Oh, yeah. Collab is the software.
Yeah, Collab is the software. It's just, it's not a public product. Well, that's the discovery tool I was showing you. I think I can actually pull it up on my iPad if you want to check it out.
Yeah, sure. So Collab is the software that you use to tap into the space.
Yeah, that I use to find creators.
It's not just like a list, a database of things that you browse. It's more an interface, I guess. Okay, so what we see is a website, app Collab info.
So this is the main page I use. It's called Growth. And then here's where I was showing you. So total authors, TikTok is 2.5 million, let's call it round up. Twitch is 300,000. We're still kind of getting our formula right, but the idea is we're sorting by engagement rate. So this person, and actually...
And you score engagement.
So let's do this. Let's do average. Minimum 100,000 followers. So then... this person has 251,000 followers. They're getting a 2,000% engagement score, 400,000, 100, right? And then you just kind of scroll find creators.
So this is the way how you can find creators. You cannot right now connect with them through the platform or through the interface.
That's a good question. No,
which is a different thing.
It's a different thing, but also I think it's just like, I think that's just I don't even know the answer to that problem, admittedly. I mean, it's like, because it's like, how do you get in touch with creators? It brings up the question for me, which is like, well, even if you did make an easier way to get in touch with creators, you would still need to get them to sign up for the platform and be engaged on it, which I actually think that there is a huge opportunity there. But you would just need to build a brand. And here's the thing about brand building, and this is something that I learned from my business partner. It's like the thing about building a brand is, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's like you just create, you think through the entire brand design experience, and then you just start sharing it with people. And from there, your brand and community should build itself, assuming you've created a experience that is thought through, that makes sense, right, for your brand. And obviously there's elements there where it's like, well, yeah, and then you need to, create a sticky product and all that. But I do think in general, it's like just, you got to create a brand experience that makes sense. This is getting a little bit more abstract, but I do think like Apple is a good example, just in terms of like, or, Nike, like some of the best brands in the world. Like you have a very clear idea of what they do. And I think the whole concept of brand strategy can feel very like abstract and philosophical and in the clouds. But then really, I guess here's a more specific example, and something that I think like creators can even take away, or aspiring creators, is like, who said this was Virgil Abloh. And you know who Virgil is, right? The creator. Yeah. So Virgil said this, where he was saying how he was like, yeah, like in a world where people are so obsessed with like numbers and following, Virgil was just saying like in a world where, people are so obsessed with like numbers and following, he's like, there's something cool about just having something that like very few people know about, like a small niche knows about. And he's like, I think that's an underrated concept. And so I guess I say that to say, yeah, it's like just solve a problem for a small amount of people and do a great job at it. And I'm not saying like you can just coast from there, but like don't underestimate the power of solving a problem for a few amount of people and doing a great job at that and creating a consistent experience.
That's the growth framework. You start in a niche, and you end up with more broad audiences. That's always how it works, because you cannot solve a problem for all at once. You have to start in a niche and get as niche as you can, and then you build it up from there. That's how all the big products in the world have started, and this is the way forward. Of course, that's smart.
Yeah, I mean, even the guy that started Airbnb, Brian Chesky, one of the founders, he was saying how he pitched all these VCs on Airbnb, and they were saying, oh, the total addressable market is too small, and obviously he went on to create this like massively successful company. But I think what I learned from that whole story was like sometimes you can create such a great product that you create the market.
You create the market, you become a category leader. And this is what you have to define quite early. What is the category? Is the category existing? And they did very well, because there was no real category for that.
There was no category for it, but it ended up being massive. Start?
Yeah, and then it ended up massive, but they started with a conference in San Francisco. That was their niche.
Yeah.
They provided airbeds for a conference and those attendees.
Yeah.
And then
they're actually now that I'm saying it, they're a great example of what I'm talking about.
But it's amazing. Now I understand. Now I get it.
Yeah.
And
but that's what I'm saying. It was just for 10 people. They created this like really consistent, well thought through experience that it's like, now when you think of Airbnb, you have a very clear idea of what it is in your head. And I think that, if anything, I think founders should really think through what's that experience for what I'm trying to give to people, right? As much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this accounts for the Airbnbs of this world, and entertainment companies, products, and the creator economy. And each creator to find a niche and start in this niche and do it right, really explore it. And as you said, and we just talked about it at the beginning when we browsed and tapped into the startup space, we said, look, startups sometimes are not obsessed with their problem. And it's the same with creators. They have to be obsessed with one thing so that others can tap into that. And if you want to be a creator for the purpose of being a creator, don't do it. Don't start. Don't even start. Don't even think about it. Same goes for startups. I met so many startups who, where the founders try to be founders, but not being obsessed with the problems of their customers or their viewers in the creator case. So this is interesting. And this should be a playbook that should be taught to everyone who's an aspiring creator, trying to tap into the space
Yeah.
before they burn out.
Yeah, well, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier was just like my presentation, obviously my keynote. And I think that another thing I took away from that was just like, and I appreciate your feedback a lot. And if you have it, do you have it written down somewhere? I'd love to just take a picture of it before I leave. But it's like, I think what I liked about putting that together is for the next time, because I think, a big reason why I actually avoided doing keynotes for a long time, not that I ever said no to any opportunities, I just wouldn't go out of my way to be like, I want to do a keynote, right? And this one kind of came to me. And honestly, thankfully it did. I'm not complaining that I only had a month. I think it's good context, for some people. But anyway, so I think a big reason why I avoided keynotes for a long time was because I just was like, I want to make sure I'm talking about something that ideally something I really believe in. But if I'm not able to achieve that, then at least something I kind of believe in that I can create a path for to eventually fully believe in, right? And it's a big part of the reason why I've started to really take content creation seriously, and kind of do stuff that I've always wanted to do that I've never had an excuse to do, that I'm now taking very seriously. And I think to your point, it's like it is. There's a few different words thrown around, right? Like even at the beginning of my keynote, right, I gave a statistic that Lego ran a survey with 3,000 kids in the US and the UK. And, the number one job that they wanted to be was a YouTuber. Right. And
not an astronaut
anymore. And funny enough, there was a segment of those kids that were in China and the number one job was still astronaut in China.
Oh, was it?
Interestingly enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
But for the sake of my presentation, that didn't contribute to what I was trying to say. So I left it out, I talk about it a little bit in the presentation, which is to say when you think about why, it's very clear, right? It's like, you're famous, you get to kind of be yourself, you get to be creative. But I think where I'm trying to get at is I think that, and that's kind of what I was talking to you a little bit about, is I think where the creator economy gets really exciting is when we start to truly reimagine what it means to be a creator. And I think that's where I start to admittedly step into this kind of new market segment, like an Airbnb. I'm creating a new market that doesn't exist that I believe in. And I think, I don't know, I think I do have a lot of credibility saying that, but also I am going to be very self-aware to be I'm not, a Brian Chesky yet or anything like that. But this is just based off the credibility I have today, which is to say I think you should try and go after creating new markets. I think that's always when you're creating stuff that you're most excited about. I think you should always try to get there, because to feed into anyone's existing idea of what a market is I don't think giving yourself enough credit or flexibility to try and really do something big. But also that's just how I think, you know what I mean? I'm not saying everyone needs to do that. But I think that there is a big element of reimagining, what it means to be a creator, because I guess in my opinion, I said this a long time ago and I stopped saying it, not because I didn't believe in it anymore, but just because it kind of just didn't. I think I've been trying to figure out my tone and my purpose as a creator. And I think now I'm getting closer to getting there, not completely, but just definitely way more. Cause to your point, you can tell the people that just make content to make content. It's well, why are you doing this? Right. And I think when you ask me, I'll have a answer for you that's kind of interesting. What I used to say about the creator economy was just I personally felt what it means to be a creator is just to use the internet to kind of monetize your passions, right? And your vocation or whatever you might want to call it. And it's that's the beauty of the internet is there's increasingly more and more tools, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Substack, where it's you can tell these stories. And I think that even when you talk to other people about what's the next kind of iteration of the internet that we're going to see, and this is why the creator economy is going to continue to blow up, is like, I think we're going to see this really cool kind of mix between like, I think they call creator economy 1.0 like the blog era, and then creator economy 2.0 was like the, you know, kind of like maybe the TikTok era, and then there's like this 3.0, which is, I think, in a world where, you know, people have a desire for, you know, storytelling or wanting to hear great stories, great content. I think we're going to see a lot of creators like really ramp up their game and start to just basically create like television show quality content online. And I don't even mean that from a production cost perspective. I mean that from a pure quality storytelling professionalization of the creator economy.
Of the creator economy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And we already see this, right? I mean, we see how viewers move from an HBO and lean more into their favorite channels on YouTube.
Yeah.
And say and look out for a video that's coming out. Whereas when you talk to media executives, especially in the film industry, they're all like, we can't understand how people favor a video on YouTube in such a bad quality over our great movie in the cinemas. And you're like, did you hear the shot right now? It is so obvious, because the stuff on YouTube, on TikTok is, I mean, of course, it's 7 to 15 seconds. That's the format that still runs the best. But it is entertaining. It is a format that has more authenticity. And the era of the big stars and the Hollywood movies, it will not come to an end, though. But it's dramatically reduced and has now limits.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I guess it's happening to you too. You at night when you go to bed or before going to bed, I try not to look at the phone, but I still do. However, before you go to bed, you rather browse through some experiences people had on TikTok and on Instagram rather than watching a television show where you just consume one thing and one story at all. And instead of one story, you have tens, thousands of stories at your fingertips on TikTok about your mindset and the mindset that you are in. Whereas we all know TikTok is not, it's not a community though. TikTok is, what is TikTok for you? For me, TikTok is not community-ish as Instagram. It has not the tone, the reliability, the authenticity. So for me, it's not a community. What is it for you? Is it a channel? Is it a platform?
You know, the thing about TikTok is like, they actually don't, from my understanding, they don't have a product team in the US, or they don't have a very big product team. And the reason that is because they mostly just take what, I mean, I believe they have a huge product team in China, right? But they basically, they just import whatever they have over in China over to the US, right? So it's like from a consumer experience, like we're going to say, yeah, it doesn't have community, right? Maybe that's important to us. Maybe it's a little bit different over there. But also you got to remember the reason why TikTok exists is to like just keep us on TikTok. So that's why if you notice, like there's not like great features for DMing, there's not really like big community features on there. It's like the whole purpose of TikTok is just to like keep you scrolling to the next video. Entertainment, which is why they've put so much emphasis on their like, you know, alleged algorithm and all that.
So for you, it's an entertainment.
I'd say for me, it's entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than a platform. Whereas I like the TikTok video features. I prefer them over the Instagram video features. But however, you're right. It's rather the modern TV than a social network and community.
I would say so. Yeah, I think it's like more so the modern TV in that aspect. Yeah. And then I also think like even just platforms like YouTube are really interesting when it comes down to like, I mean, that's even just stuff I'm getting into right now with my work, is just trying to understand the difference between like, you know, if we're to talk to a Twitch streamer that's talking to let me say this really quickly, is like, if we're talking to a Twitch streamer that has, you know, 1,000 concurrent viewers on every stream, what is the value of that audience? But I also think a really big aspect of at least how I approach doing creator partnerships is like wanting to co-create the campaign with them. So I think that's a really big piece of it, is like we're not giving you something to promote. We're building, co-creating something with you. I think that's, if there's any way that you're going to be speaking to an audience, it's going to be through that, co-creation.
Jacob, as a content creator who's not like benefiting from putting the face into the camera, but being a more behind the scenes guy and facilitator, what would your suggestion or advice be for modern content creators, let's say, who are already in this space for a year or so? What would your advice be to look out for? What would your advice be? What they should become? What they should experiment with?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You built a very unique position for yourself, because you know how platforms work. You know how the attention works, how the attention economy works, how creators works, generations work. So, and by not putting yourself front and center, you are allowed to do way more than everyone else. You can do and create another company and another brand and a newsletter and a platform and an algorithm, database, etc. Whereas other creators who are using their face, their presence for their audience are dramatically limited because they're busy with filming. So this is a very interesting thing I saw in your entire career. You're moving backwards. You start with something, then you find the right people, then you move out, then you put it up from behind, so to say. You keep pushing, and then you're building the next one.
And even with the Pace Report, like, I'm going to be the main driver and it's going to be my face, but then like, I hope within the next like 6 to 9 months, I want to have other personalities produce videos for the Pace Report, and then eventually, like, sure, I'll, maybe I have the biggest show on there, maybe not, I don't know, but I think it's just fun to kind of stay active in it, and it gives me like an interesting perspective on things. But I'm very much about like creating brands where like I don't always need to be in front of it all the time.
Observing is sometimes better to create something than being the creator itself.
No, I mean, that like, I get it, like I get it. Like, even when I think about, what's it called? Like this concept of burnout, and like, even interestingly enough, like I've started to work a lot with like this new category of creators called faceless creators, which are basically just creators that like, I don't know, maybe they make AI generated content. Maybe they make like really cool edits on TikTok, but the point is like they're getting the same amount of views as like regular influencers, but they're not showing their face anywhere.
Even more.
Maybe even more views. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that when I talk to them, they always say this, but they're like, the interesting thing about being a faceless creator is you start to look at your content creation career as like a business. Not like you don't get so personally attached to it because your face isn't in it. And so like in terms of this whole idea of like people that like get burnt out, like I totally get that. I don't know. Something that I've benefited a lot from is just like finding community in terms of like what that means for me. And I think that like that's just something that I think on a human level, people always need to find out, because it's always really easy to kind of get burnt out when like you're just feel like you're doing it on your own. And like I don't think finding community is like an easy thing to find either. But I think just like having that intention to be like, I'm going to go find my people. Because I even talked about this a little bit in the presentation, but like Mr. Beast,
big YouTuber.
Yeah, biggest YouTuber, arguably. I think right now he's number one. But
still,
it's crazy. I think he's going to reach 1 billion subscribers. This is insane. But he says when he was on the come up that he had like another group of YouTubers. Oh, here's another really interesting thing. So he had another group of YouTubers, and they were all like kind of competing, right? And I think he even says like, because I think he got asked the question like, oh, well, where are they now? And he was like, I don't know. I think they just kind of like gave up this and that. So like, it's not like, which I think should be like motivating to people, right? Because it's like the reason they didn't succeed to Mr. Beast level was not because they they just didn't hit the lottery. It's because they like quote unquote gave up, right? At least according to the way he puts it.
May I add to that?
Yeah.
Giving up is the number one reasons why businesses and ideas fail.
Yeah.
It's not that the idea or the business didn't work. It's just because
it's just like, lack of grit.
People give up.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I read this quote today on Instagram. Other like ambitious people are good for other ambitious people to hang around, because if you're an ambitious person, the chances are that you didn't grow up being around ambitious people. So it's like, and it was saying how when you find an ambitious person to be around, it almost is the same effect as like a dry plant getting water for the first time, or, getting a healthy amount of water. And I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I think that's why community is important, is because like just on a human level, you need other people that share your same values to even just be friends with. That's why like there was a question I got asked last year at Web Summit that was like something along the lines of like burnout, because like, we were talking about this and you said, oh yeah, we're at this tech conference and people talk about burnout and overwhelmingly people have this applause. But that's where I'm like, what's the difference between the creator economy and wanting to be successful at anything in life? Like there's always going to be something. There's always going to be like, if it's not this, it's going to be something else that we can point our fingers to and say that it's a problem. At the end of the day, it's like, how bad do you want it? Why do you want it? You got to put in the reps. Like it's no different than anything else. It's literally no different than anything else.
With sports, with career, with everything.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't think the problem, it's like, there's these human problems that exist and we use external variables, technology as excuses. Oh, the algorithm didn't work. It's not the algorithm. Maybe you have a lack of community. Maybe you have a lack of drive. Maybe it's not, these aren't the problems.
Do you hear this a lot as an excuse and explain, oh yeah, it didn't work because the algorithm?
I get it. I don't know if an excuse, but it's always a question I get asked. And it's like, y'all are focusing on the wrong shit. Like, I know something that used to, not actually piss me off, but just something that I was just always never understood was like I got verified on Instagram, like way before you could buy it. I got verified on Twitter, probably about a year before you could buy it. I got Forbes 30 under 30. Funny enough, this one is actually putting it in jeopardy, but fuck it, I'll say it. Is I also created my own Wikipedia. I know the Wikipedia community would not like to hear that.
What the heck?
Huh?
What the heck?
What hack?
Yeah.
It's not a hack.
It's not?
Not a hack. I'll tell you right now. But anyway, my point is, let's talk about all the other stuff first, right? The verification, the Forbes, the this, the that. Like, to your point, I never went out of my way to go create my personal brand. I just created companies that validated me as an entrepreneur. Right? So that I could be behind the scenes. And I don't know if it was necessarily intentional so that I could reach this point, have a conversation with you and have you observe that. I don't think it was ever really that self-aware. I think I just was more inclined towards taking that direction creatively. It's like, yeah, of course we all want the perfect handle. We want the perfect domain. We want the .com. It's probably pretty hard to get these days. It's like, just start, like, stop thinking about this. Stop thinking that like a verification is not going to make your content perform any better. I've seen so many non-verified accounts, and I'm not saying, because to answer your question, people don't approach it to me as a problem. They're not saying, hey, Jacob, if I was verified, I'd have a way longer career. They're not saying that. It's just like, just stop thinking about it, because it's like, don't chase the prize. Just enjoy the journey and let the prize come to you. Because it's like, even the way I got the Forbes thing, which I was talking with my friend a long time ago, or one of my business partner, and I was telling him, I was like, I mean, granted, we were already kind of like, a couple Jack and Cokes in. So it's like, maybe I was saying some crazy shit, but it wasn't that crazy. All I was saying was like, I honestly think that if someone were to give me the option of $1 million or Forbes 30 under 30, I think I would still choose the Forbes 30 under 30, because the money's going to come and go. But that stuff, and it sounds a little dramatic when I say it, but it's true. That stuff does stay forever. And that's the Forbes 30 under 30. If you use it in the right way, can make you way more than $1 million.
We have it in your intro anyway. So
yeah,
it's a label.
That's what I'm saying. It's a label. And I never went out of my way to be like, this is like, I need to get this. of course. I think I wrote it down in one of my journals a long time ago. Like, it's probably in one of my journals. Yeah, when I was like...
So you have a goal journal where you say, this is what I want to achieve, and then you...
Yeah, I mean, I still have that, but it's not something I ever share with people. Like, I have a personal philosophy that you should keep your goals private, right?
Very common in the Silicon Valley.
Very common, yeah. I keep them all private, but it was probably in a journal somewhere. And then I forgot about it, and then I just worked, and then I got it. But, like, I don't know, like, I've always looked at those as, like, tools to, like, open up doors for me. And I think a lot of people just look at them for, like, the validation to say that they did it. And yeah, I just think that, you know, back to the whole concept of, like, making excuses, I think at the end of the day, yeah, it's like, it's just, we're all talking about problems that exist on a human and interpersonal level, and intrapersonal level, right? It's like, those are the real problems, not like, I got asked this question last year about, you know, someone talking about, you know, mental health, and social media. And I was like, so just get off social media then. Like, what are you complaining about? Like, do you want to do something in social media? Okay, then, like, stop making excuses and just start making content. Like, it's the same thing. Like, oh, I'm an athlete, but, you know, we're put under all this pressure. It's like, well, how bad do you want it? It's not, the stuff hasn't changed.
Yeah, but look, we will see some regulation very soon. I think within the next 1-2 years, we will have a certain framework that will regulate in the US
for under 18
EU, how the use of social media, how the use of phones will look like, and what is allowed and what not, and what circumstances, what's going on at school.
Yeah, I don't, again, and I'm not saying, I don't know if I'm for or against that, to be honest. I mean, of course I want to keep, you know, I don't have kids, so it's like there's an element that I don't understand there. I don't know. Of course, I don't want kids to get cyberbullied, but also, like, I don't think kids should be bullied in general, even offline. So it's like those bullies are still going to exist, you know. That's why I don't feel like, okay, now we have a new medium to do it. It's the same thing though. It's still a bully,
and so work on the problems.
And you still need to stand up to your bullies, regardless of if it's on Instagram or if it's in person.
True.
You know, so I don't think that, I still think that there's human problems to address on that level. I don't think that censoring is always, like, people are still going to ultimately find their ways to get their hands on stuff and figure out, okay, well, if it's not cool, we regulated these platforms, but now, you know, this exists. So I still think that you just can't point to other people for excuses on stuff.
I'll tell you something. I think it will start in the EU first, and then
make its way to the
it will hit the US. I mean, there are some initiatives in the Congress already around it. So I'm sure we will see regulation very soon.
Yeah.
And this being said, as a father of 3 and one of my youngest ones, Levi, is 12, and he has no phone. He's just an Apple Watch that he bought himself from playing on the street, playing
the cello.
Really? Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he is in such a good mental state. He's not gaming, but he's having problems with his friends because they spend their time online. And when he's asking them after school, hey, what can we do today? Do you want to join my music session? Can we do some music together? Like, no, I have appointments with my friends in Minecraft. And no, I'm watching my streams on Instagram or on TikTok. So it's really, really hard these days for him to get offline sessions done with his friends. Isn't that amazing? Jacob, I mean, what the heck? Where are we living? What's going on? So, and he chooses school by visiting the school before he joined the school and checking out how these other students work with their phones. And he tried to be out of 2 schools. And he said he don't want to attend these schools because what he saw was people leaving the classroom and immediately pulling out their phones by walking out of the room and ignoring everything else. And he said, I don't want to be there. This is not healthy. I don't know.
I mean, now that you're saying it, it's like, I understand it. It's like, I get why something like an Instagram is like, even if you're under 18 and you have an Instagram, it's like, it's just way too accessible in my opinion. And it's like, I think that your profile is like way too accessible, but that's why as a parent, it's like, there's still solutions and problems that exist on a human level, on a family level, on an interpersonal level. And like, it's up to you how you want to like run your family and make those decisions at the end of the day, because there's always going to be like external problems, right, that are coming in, and it's like, well, it depends. Like, are you the kind of, you know, parent that, do you want to let your kid on social media? Do you want to like set some rules? That's like really your call. But yeah, of course, you know, when I think about like my kids, you know, being on Instagram, and it's like, I just know that the internet is like very much the Wild West, and yeah, you just want to be careful with that stuff.
Jacob, very good thoughts at the end of our little podcast here. Thank you very much for being here. I think if it's hard to wrap it up, you know, we've touched a lot of things. We touched your vision, insights about the creator economy, the market, how it's still growing, how you went from Flight House Media then to Pace to your other models, how you've been the creator behind the scenes versus the creator who puts his face into a camera. We talked about building engaging communities, what this should be, how you use algorithms, and how you use sourcing to then build your own database that you can lean on and touch for your clients. Yeah, we talked about a little bit about a healthy state or healthy, how vital and healthy the creator economy should be like. We talk about the innovations and also how you envision new markets and the new creator economy, how do we say, phases from 1.0 to 3.0, and where contribution comes from. One thing that stood out for me was the how we talked about entrepreneurship. I think almost everything was about entrepreneurship right now, wasn't it? About the ambitious people rule. That's what I liked. That's great. Problem statement. You need to be obsessed with problems. I'm just going to see
if I can find that.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. So we really tapped into a lot of things, regulation, and Twitch as well. I was surprised. I think you mentioned Twitch almost more than TikTok. So we were seeing more of Twitch, I guess, coming from you. So this is awesome.
Oh yeah, I have the quote. This is from Paul Graham.
Oh, Paul Graham. Okay.
Who is is he the co-founder of Y Combinator? Okay,
yeah. He's the but he's the main man.
Yeah, it says ambitious people are rare. So if everyone is mixed together randomly, as they tend to be early in people's lives, then the ambitious ones won't have many ambitious peers. When you take people like this and put them together with other ambitious people, they bloom like dying plants given water. Probably most ambitious people are starved for the sort of encouragement they'd get from ambitious peers, whatever their age.
This is the best closing remark we had on the podcast so far. Jacob, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And bye. Bye, Breaking Barriers.
Thank you.
See you next year.